And we are back with more on Newstalk Saga 960. So very glad you could join us on this edition of the Mark Petrana Show. Well, this is why we love Andy Lee so much, because she does the hard slogging work of pouring through documents, doing what she can to break a story. And so here she is, having done it again. She also took the added step of following up with government, filing a complaint about these rapid test COVID tests, right? So there was this sense that she had that many of these tests that were supposed to be made in Canada were not made in Canada. And so she not only exposed the story, the fact that these tests were being brought in from China, but she also followed through with a complaint, official complaint, through to Health Canada. The result has been that these tests have been pulled. And so now joining us is Andy Lee, coming to us from Calgary, Alberta. And Andy, tell us what's going on with this story. I mean, you filed a complaint with Health Canada. Why don't you take us back to your original story, which was that these tests, these rapid tests that were supposed to be made in Canada, actually were not?
Yeah, so it was a story I was sent. It was really odd. I was sent these Chinese messages, and I didn't know what they were. So I've got wonderful people who help me translate on Twitter, and they have to do so in secret because they're actually in danger of facing repercussions in China. They've got family in China, so they work sort of underground for me. So we translated these chats, and it was about workers who said that they were being mistreated and abused at a warehouse. And so we found the warehouse, and the warehouse was in British Columbia. It was in Burnaby. And so I've got all these wonderful people who helped me. And I sent people to the warehouse to find out what was going on there. And what we found is that the warehouse looked like it was manufacturing rapid tests. And the tests were supposed to be 100% made in Canada. That was the company's claims. But all the boxes, the components, we traced the bill of ladings, we traced import records and things like that. And what we found is that the tests were all coming from China, and they were suddenly sort of approved by Health Canada in late 2021, early 2022. All of a sudden, they were rushed through. And I questioned it because I found a whole bunch of stuff that said that maybe these tests shouldn't be pushed through. So that's where we're at. And then all of a sudden today, we've got this news that provinces are not being distributed rapid tests anymore. The federal government is going to be warehousing these. Of course, we had billions and billions. There was $2.5 billion, sorry, approved in a new COVID, pandemic measure document in legislature to acquire rapid tests. And we've spent over $4 billion so far on these. And now all of a sudden the government is warehousing them. They're not distributing them suspiciously after we filed a complaint with Health Canada. So, I mean,
What are we looking at now? For those who can watch this segment.
Yeah, so this is from the warehouse. So the warehouse, we've done this segment before. We talked to them. It's in Richmond, British Columbia, but we found another satellite location, and this is the location. And so this company's claims is that their rapid tests are 100% made in Canada. But I mean, you can see the bill of lading there. This is being imported from Shandong, China. If you trace back the roots of this company, almost all of their imports come from a company in China called Oshwang. And so that's what we found, is that they're importing all these test components from China. So, at the very least, these companies' claims are false. I talked to representatives from the company themselves. It's on record. It's recorded. They say that, they're 100% manufactured in Canada. And obviously, you can see right here, that's not true. And so I began to look deeper into these tests because I thought, why did we approve them, and what else are we not being told? If they're not doing their manufacturing in Canada, what else is going on behind the scenes? And so what I found is that the FDA has actually not approved these tests. And furthermore, if they come into port in the United States, these tests will be seized. They're on a red list. They're on an import seizure list. And what is being seized?
Wow.
Yeah,
You're
so
on an
you
import seizure list.
go
Talk
ahead,
about that.
pull up the tweet, and we can have a look at it. You can look at it for yourself. If you go in the tweet, it's right there. So, and what they're seizing mostly is, if you look at the components that they're seizing, it's the reagents. So just go down a little bit, and you can see the FDA, the red list. It's a black list, but they call it a red list. Just go down, down, down. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and up a little bit. There it is.
Okay, the import alert. Okay, so the note reads for our radio audience, this import alert represents the agency's current guidance to FDA field personnel. Obviously, FDA, the Food and Drug Administration of the United States, field personnel regarding the manufacturers and or products at issue. It does not create or confer any rights for or on any person and does not operate to bind FDA or the public. So, and then it goes on to say, import alert name, detention without physical examination of devices without approved PMAs or IDEs. I'm not sure I understand what this means.
Well, just go over. If you page over, you can see the next shot, and it will show you what the import alert was put out on.
Okay, so this is it here, and it includes the Burnaby address, 3938 North Fraser Way.
And so what they're seizing here, if you have a look, and what they're detaining is reagents. And so I began to question, well, why are they detaining the extraction buffers, the reagents used in these tests? And so then it was, very strange, because shortly after these rapid tests were approved, Health Canada put out a recall notice on their website, and anybody can look that up. And what they've said is that, they've put out a recall notice that there may be toxic components in the buffers. They should be kept out of reach of children, not to be, in the reach of pets. If you sort of get it in your eyes, you have to do an eye wash. There's been numerous reports put out in CBC. There was over 50 calls to poison control centers after people ingested the components of these kits. But the funny thing is that if you look at these test kits, and they're given out to children, they were being distributed in schools to children to take home, even though Health Canada says do not keep these out of reach children, right? Kids are taking them home. If you look at the components, they're not listed. So I wanted to know what was in them. And so I called the lab, and they wouldn't tell me. They said that they didn't have to tell me. They said, we are a distributor. We're an authorized distributor for Health Canada. So it's not up to us to list the ingredients of our test components. That's up to Health Canada to disclose that information. So, but I'm kind of like, well, there's nothing.
But we paid for it. It's like the taxpayers paid for that, sir. I mean, we paid for a service that touted itself as 100% Canadian made. In fact, we played the video last time. This is Artron.
Yeah, here it is. We can hear all about how this is all manufactured in Canada.
Even though we put it
Artron,
let's listen.
Nonsense.
As the industry's leader in innovation, we perfected our processes to be able to bring you cutting-edge technology
that works faster, more efficiently, and more reliably than any other product on the market.
Our technology development is proprietary, and its results are unparalleled in the industry,
allowing us to bring you exactly what you need, not only more quickly and efficiently, but with more accuracy and sensitivity.
With tests for fertility, infectious diseases, drugs of abuse, cardiac and tumor markers, GMOs, and food safety.
Artron has a range of products that remains unrivaled by any other company in the world.
We have it all here, 100% made in Canada. We do everything in-house.
Well, that's not true, is it?
Well, I mean, what?
Obviously not.
Is your house using Chinese laborers in Richmond? If that's what you consider in-house, then sure. But I mean, that's the fact. Those are in photos, right? Like I said, I've got people surveilling this warehouse. And, we haven't seen anything that's been manufactured in Canada yet. So, I mean, give me a break.
So what are they going to do against this company? I mean, they probably are linked to the Liberals in Ottawa.
Well, I mean, I've been trying to figure out more about this company. That's like one of the weirdest things. I don't know if I can share. Can I share my screen?
I don't think you can. I think I'd have to
Anyways, I've
bring it up.
got a full PowerPoint presentation that I did on this, showing all the documents and everything. So this company is so strange. If you look, if you look on the website, if you look at the board of directors, there's no information on the board of directors. There's blank pictures. There's no histories. There's no biographies. And is that nefarious? Not really. But, when we're talking about somebody who's manufacturing medical devices in Canada, we want to make sure that this company's got a solid background. And I can't find anything on it, really. The only thing that I found is research papers. It's a little bit unusual for a Canadian, biotech company. I can't find any Canadian collaboration or collaboration with the United States.
Okay, you filed a complaint with Health Canada, though, Andy, right? Did you? I mean, you filed the complaint, and
I
then
did.
now all of a sudden they're taking action, but they're not, attributing it to anything you did. They're just doing it, right?
Well, I mean, I don't get attributed for anything that I do very much, and that's okay. That's not why I do it.
Well, on this show you do, but talk about what's going on with these tests now. What's happening with these test kits now?
So I was just gonna finish my thought there. So the only collaboration I've seen between this research facility in Burnaby is with China. If you look at the papers, and they're collaborating with high-level research facilities in China, right? We're talking about National Institutes for Microbiology. We're talking about Sinovac. So they're partnering with huge Chinese companies on research projects, but they're not partnering with any, European or North American facilities. So it's sort of like, is this a Canadian company at all, or is this sort of a satellite facility of China? And that's fair to ask. It's not, and there's nothing wrong with it if that's what it is. It was approved, but because Health Canada has now all of a sudden, I mean, they just did this crazy about face. They were just pushing this in the budget, right? And now all of a sudden they've got a complaint sitting on their table where I'm like, what's in these test components? How come you're not disclosing the contents? Are they toxic? Why haven't you listed what's on the labels? What's going on at this warehouse? These people say that they're being mistreated. Are these even, Canadian citizens? Are they permanent foreign residents? Or are they?
Yeah, are they illegal laborers? So this is your tweet. I happen to file a complaint with Health Canada. Now the tests are being pulled from the provinces and federally warehoused after spending billions of dollars of tax dollars on them. I mean, this is absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, no, it's
who's
crazy.
Been charged?
Well,
has anybody been charged? Is anybody being detained? I mean, are the cops involved?
Nothing's going on. This is what they do, right? They'll just quietly pull them and hope that that's the end of it. But you know what? It's not going to be the end of it, because I've got people who sent me chats saying that they were being mistreated assembling these rapid tests in Canada. So you know what? I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a Canadian resident. I don't care if you're illegal. You don't get to be exploited in this country, especially by somebody who's licensed by Health Canada. I'm sorry, that's not what we stand for here. So I want to get to the bottom of this.
Andy Lee joining us on Saga 960 on the Mark Petronis Show with an interesting development in a story that she had been working on that she broke, involving these rapid tests allegedly manufactured in Burnaby, BC, or at least in Canada, that now have come under scrutiny thanks to not only her work as a journalist, but her complaint directly to Health Canada. And now these tests are being pulled from the provinces and federally warehoused. And we need to find out more, because obviously the government screwed up. You're spending, as you said, enormous sums of money. I mean, the pandemic was a scam in and of itself, and this is part of that. This is an extension of the misuse of tax dollars as a result of this pandemic and COVID and the rest of it. They saw this as a license to spend, line their own pockets, line the pockets of their friends, and sure enough, it involves the Chinese. And here we are being sold a phony bill of goods, not only by this company, but by the government itself, which said that these tests were manufactured in Canada. It turns out they just came in from China. And so there have been problems associated with these tests. As you've noted, the FDA has been involved in terms of slapping some kind of restrictions on its importation. And so who knows what negative impacts these tests may have had on Canadians. Who knows if there have been a number, how many complaints there have been associated with this, whatever health risks are associated with them, and which have manifested in the form of conditions that people have suffered, and maybe they didn't even attribute it to the test. Do we have any information around possible impacts on those who use these tests, Andy?
No, but like I said, I'm especially given that they're pulling them now. I'm even more determined to find out what went on here, and what's in these tests. I want to know exactly what's in them. And you know what? I have a right as a consumer to know that information. That shouldn't be privy. You don't get to put out a recall notice saying that there's possible toxicity without saying which tests you're talking about. Are you talking about the Artron tests? Is that one of them? And what's in them? What are you exposing people to? Because you know what? If you're in British Columbia, these tests were sent home with your kids. And then we know that people ended up calling poison control because they were exposed to components in the test. And that's in the worker chats too. Like, if you translate these chats, and the people who did that for me, bless you, thank you so much for your help. They're saying you didn't tell us that there was toxic components in the test. That's in a Chinese chat that I was sent. And that was what really piqued my interest here, as I was like, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on here? Are these people being properly trained? Are they handling these materials properly? Are they safe? And, and we're being distributed this stuff. So what's going on here? And like I said, I don't know the full explanation. Maybe there's a perfectly good explanation, but I'm just not seeing it right now. What I'm seeing is what
there's no explanation for telling people that this antigen test is made in Canada when in fact it's not.
No,
I want to run past a couple of other stories, because CTV now is saying that they may have to be a change in the definition of fully vaccinated.
It's kind of funny.
How many times have I mentioned that on my show?
Well, it's kind of funny because
third shot. They want a booster in order to qualify, which means that all those people who've not had the third shot are going to end up in the same COVID jail that those who have had no shots have been in for months and months.
But here's the fun thing, is that we're actually seeing some stations react to what we're putting out. So yesterday I put out, they won't dare mandate a third shot because a lot of people would reject it, and they would strengthen the anti-vaccine movement, and they would empower it because people will reject the idea that they have to be perpetually boosted to travel. And so I put out that yesterday, and then coincidentally today, CTV has got a poll over whether we should mandate a third booster, right? So you're actually seeing
that's media working hand in glove with the government. A perfect example.
Yeah, no,
the government wants to push a third shot, so they're using their flunkies in the media over at CTV. So you do a poll, send out a trial balloon to see if people will buy it.
And so, no, it's really, really interesting. So, I mean, when we talk about we're all being tracked and all that stuff, you know what, it's not that far out there. They're definitely watching, what we're doing, our thoughts are, how we're sort of, trying to move forward and get out of this. And so, I feel like that poll was put out 100% in a reactionary manner to, the thought that I put out yesterday, and that so many people commented on that they would not get a third booster. So that's like a direct reaction that we're seeing from our media and our government as a result of what we're putting out. And so, yeah, I mean, did they pull the rapid test because of what we put out? I can't say for sure. I think that they're questioning I don't think it's because all of a sudden they're saying they're not useful. I think that they're saying, hold on here, did we authorize these in fairness, right?
Yeah, well, here's a tweet by our friend and colleague Tom Quiggin. Twitter says you cannot share or like this information, yet it comes from Pfizer's own documents. Meanwhile, the Canadian Forces continues to coerce female service members into taking the jab, even though they know the damage it causes. Then there's been documents coming out. The Pfizer document reveals that between 82% and 97% of pregnant women lost their babies. This was during, I guess, the clinical trials that they did, or the trials that they did. 270 pregnant mothers reported adverse clinical events, and more than 60% of these were serious. I mean, this is not a joke. These numbers are outrageous. And then the FDA and the big pharma tried to have these documents buried, sealed, and protected from the prying eyes of anybody else who wanted to see that was interested for 75 years. Andy, they tried to have, and thank goodness that some wise, benevolent judge said, no, we can't do this. You've got to release them. Naturally, the bought-off media stayed away from that story. But Naomi Wolf and some of her friends and colleagues and volunteers, several thousand volunteers, all of them very good researchers, scientists, have been pouring through these documents. And what they have found is shocking in terms of what Big Pharma has tried to hide in terms of the negative health effects of these shots. What say you, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, the Pfizer documents, I am sort of pouring through them. I don't know if, I don't know if that's where my attention is best focused, because everybody else is looking at them, right? And there's physicians who are looking at them that are probably better equipped to deal with them than I am. And, I get very cautious about what I post, because of course we know that I've already been deplatformed once. And, I think that everybody's looking for
as far as I know, Naomi Wolf has not been deplatformed yet.
Yeah.
But this stuff is going to come out.
No, I think that she's suspended again, actually.
Oh, well, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah. But let's listen a little bit to her two quotes, which she was talking about, that got her into all that trouble. And I'm seeing the little circle there saying, oh, gee, I guess we can't really play that after all, huh? Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I mean, I read some of the
anyway, it's on Rumble. The video is on Rumble. People can go on there and listen to it.
Yeah, I read about the breastfeeding was a big thing, right? That it wasn't recommended in breastfeeding. Is that a terrible thing? It's not unusual early on in a study to say that you don't recommend something in certain demographics. That's very, very normal because you haven't studied that demographic. But then they came out.
But they didn't release that information, Andy.
But they didn't release it. That's the thing, is that they weren't forward, and then all of a sudden they came out and they said that it was safe for breastfeeding pregnant mothers and things like that. So, but it's just, we didn't see any good information as to why that changed, right? So I'm like, I couldn't find the study on breastfeeding showing that. Or what they were, or why their position changed, and again, it's because I think that's where a whole lot of the problem stems from, is that they're not being forward with us, right? And these are things that our government tried to force upon us. So if you're going to try to force something upon your population, you damn well better be upfront about what the repercussions are. And that's the first principle of, medicine is, informed consent. First, do no harm. So this was rolled out very, very quickly, and we didn't maybe study these smaller demographics and how this could impact people with maybe immune system problems or things like that. And so now people are wondering about that. We're hearing about Guillain-Barré syndrome. Guillain-Barré syndrome is not unique to this COVID shot. It's a well-known, documented side effect of vaccinations. So it's a neurological disorder. It's a temporary paralysis. It can be very, very, very debilitating. It can be life-threatening. So we just had our first person in Canada finally compensated through VISP, so VISP, the Vaccine Injury Support Program, after contracting Guillain-Barré syndrome and suffering from a debilitating paralysis. So that was the first payment. I've put in an FOI on this vaccine injury program. I want to know exactly how many people have been paid out, what their injuries were. how many people have applied, how many people have been shut down, and why were they shut down? What's the demographic? What are the criteria that you're paying out claims under this program under for people who have suffered from vaccine injuries? And it doesn't matter if you're the majority, and most drugs and most procedures for everybody are safe. Most of our medical system is relatively safe, right? We don't recommend things that are harmful. Normally, we don't want to do that, obviously, because there's risks. But it doesn't really matter if you're that one person who was, told that this wasn't a side effect, and then you suffered that side effect, and it's destroyed your life. Then it doesn't matter how many people or how safe it is, right? And we want to try to avoid that at all costs, obviously, right? We don't want anybody suffering collateral damage. We certainly don't want them suffering because they were coerced or felt obligated to keep employment or to travel or any of those reasons, to take a medical treatment and then suffer a side effect from it. That's a very, very dark place to be going if you don't.
Yeah, but I mean, this is interesting. I mean, you were talking about the kits earlier. There's this story in Blacklock's Reporter, couldn't give away test kits. Okay, so this speaks to the fact that, I can well appreciate why they would want to force a third shot, because they've stuck with all these superfluous doses. And now here they are unable to give away test kits. Federal agencies are warehousing millions. This is the story we spoke about earlier. It's also in Blacklock's Reporter. Federal agencies are warehousing millions of rapid COVID test kits only weeks after Parliament voted to spend billions with those suppliers. Total spending on rapid tests is more than $4 billion. That's with a B to date, including millions of kits the government could not give away. The quote in the story is, "I am not personally involved in the exact amounts being provided to provinces and territories." That, according to Theresa Tam, the doctor, chief public health officer. She said that to reporters on the weekend. At this stage of the pandemic, I think some of the roles and responsibilities are reverting back to the provincial jurisdictions. Yeah, because they screwed up so badly at the federal level. Now they're punting it.
Right? Yeah, like it wasn't us, right? We're not all of a sudden, we want to mandate provincial health for everybody and restrict everybody and take over provincial health until, there's a failure. And then all of a sudden it's like, not me, it's back to the premiers, right? We didn't do this. I mean, those rapid tests are in very good company. They're sitting with, all of our ventilators and sole sourced field hospitals and all of this junk that we procured and gave out these secretive sole sourced contracts for. So, I'm sure that there's, I'd love to see these warehouses, to be honest, just to paw through exactly what we bought.
They're going to end up in the dump, Andy.
Yeah, I mean,
they're going to go to the dump.
The crazy thing is that our hospitals are still somehow overrun. Like, I'm sorry, how is this happening? Like, how many billions and billions of dollars do we have to spend to fix our healthcare system, right?
Well, where has that money gone?
Imagine.
You're going to find out not that far in the future. Oh, how did Justin Trudeau get $200 million? How come he's so rich all of a sudden? Yeah, I guess Sophie sure did a great job clipping coupons. Just like the leader in what's her face, that psychopath in New Zealand, all of a sudden has millions and millions of dollars to her name. I mean, it's a scam. It's a giant scam.
You know what? I can't wait until Trudeau gets punted from office and his blind trust is not blind anymore, and we can get a better feel into his financial situation. I'd love to see that. So, but yeah, I mean, where did all this junk go? A lot of the contracts went to Chinese-based companies. If you look at the Thornhill one, that was another story that Blacklock's broke about the ventilators. Pardon me. If you look at the story that Blacklock's broke about the ventilators, so Christopher Freeland gave a sole source company a pandemic contract. It was one of her friends.
If you want to take a drink of water, you're allowed to do that. Believe me, I can talk up a storm regardless.
So she gave her constituents a sole source pandemic.
Isn't that nice?
Ventilators. And so these ventilators were never used. They're sitting in a warehouse. But if you actually look at the financial backer, it's not a Thornhill company at all. It's not a Canadian company. The company is Yonghua. Yonghua in China is the financial backer of this company. So I mean, it just, whenever you follow these contracts back, they just stink. And I question as to how much Canada benefited. I could make a case for throwing these contracts out if they were benefiting Canadian companies. But a lot of these companies, like we saw, they're not manufacturing in Canada. They're outsourcing stuff elsewhere. So the impact on Canadians, the benefit to Canadians by outsourcing this stuff is, it's very, very minimal.
All right, Andy. Listen, I got to pack it in, but I appreciate you coming on the show. And congratulations to you for the work you've done.
Well,
You rattled the cages again, so that'll probably get you booted off Twitter, and God knows, have your bank account frozen again. But just you're not backing down one iota. So good on you. Congratulations for that. Good work.
We're rattling them together, right? So yeah, it was good. I mean, did they react to this complaint? I don't know, but they sure as heck reacted, and they reacted pretty quickly.
Yeah, they've reacted right now for sure. But I guess they're hoping that their chimps in the bought off media don't cover it.
Yeah, I think that we're just kind of like, if we shelve these, maybe nobody will look and see what we were actually doing.
No, they own the media, so that bunch won't even cover the story. They're too busy pushing the idea that you're going to need a third shot in order to qualify as fully vaccinated. That's why, I mean, I've said it again, we've made the point on this show in the past. That's why they can't lift the mandates, because they've always known that they had to push another shot. There's no way people are going to take it if there's not a club hanging over their head saying, you better do that or else you're going to be a prisoner of Canada, just like those other 5 or 6 million people. All right, take care. Thank you once again, Andy.
The beatings will continue until morale improves,
until morale
right?
Improves. Yeah. These people are scum. Take care.
They are. And I was going to say, you know what? Canada Day is coming up. You know what?
Yeah, you won't hear a one positive word from you know who, from Junior.
Well,
he never says a good word. That's part of his agenda, is to demoralize the population. So on Canada Day, I'm sure he dreads it, because he knows he's expected to, lift the country up and talk about how great we are, and he hates the place. He's trying to wreck it. So you won't hear one positive word out of that scumbag's mouth. Let's see him prove me wrong.
You know what? Like I said, I think we're going to see more rhetoric ramping up about this third booster. Like I said, I think that this is a reaction to what I put out yesterday. And you know what? Go ahead, mandate a third booster. Let's raise that 6 million unvaccinated Canadians. Let's raise that number to 18 million. And then let's see what you're going to do with us.
It'll be interesting. That's why they floated this story. They used their flunkies at Bell Media. Here, put this story out. Let's see what happens. Gotta run. Thank you. Gotta run.
Anyways, yeah, bye, Mark. Have a good day in Florida, and I envy where you are.
You know what? If things change up there, I'd love to come home. But until they do.
Don't do it. Don't do it. All right?
Yeah.
And think about joining people on Canada Day on Parliament Hill.
Oh, listen, I'll be celebrating in my own little way down here in the Free State.
Yeah, well, I'll be there. We'll live stream it, okay?
Perfect.
All right.
See ya. All right, got to take a break. Back with more on News Talk Saga 960 and the Mark Petrana Show after this.